Therefore, if you join us, wonderful, and let us begin on this specific topic. If you have any specific question you would like to pose, feel free to post it on the Advocate Muhammad Abduroaf Facebook page. I am keeping a close eye on that specific page. And if you have any questions regarding child custody, relocation, contact and care issues, etc., feel free to post it and I shall try my best to answer it. Otherwise, I shall only deal with those questions on the whiteboard. Before I start answering those questions and taking live questions should they arise, relocation with the lockdown and COVID-19, it might have increased the possibility of people wanting to relocate. I can honestly tell you, before the lockdown and before COVID-19, I had more queries regarding relocation. When things were normal, people wanted to know, is it possible to relocate to another country if there is a father or a mother living in South Africa who will not see the child as regularly as they would usually see the minor child? And furthermore, they would like to know what are the procedures that they must follow. Is it possible? Passport application, what does the law say, and so on. That used to be before the lockdown, and I was quite busy regarding that. Now, recently, I've been seeing a bit of an increase in queries. People are now considering leaving South Africa and living abroad. One other example could be, let's say you worked in South Africa on a work visa and a work permit, you started a family, etc., and now things have changed and now you have to leave South Africa and go back to your country of origin. Whatever the case may be, the topic is quite relevant and prevalent, as well as people who are living overseas and would like to relocate to South Africa. It can have a bit of a reciprocal, take on it. Nonetheless, if you want to relocate from South Africa to a different country and there's a minor child involved, and the father, let's say the mother wants to relocate, and the father has parental rights and responsibilities over the minor child, then of course his consent would be required. And it becomes a bit complicated because a normal child custody matter or battle deals with a scenario where the parties are living in the same country, in the same province, as the case may be, and whatever decision the court will make, it will be based upon the fact that they are both in the country. So that the order might stipulate every second week in contact, 50-50 contact, 1 week on, 1 week off, and so on. But with relocation, it becomes a bit more challenging because the father, if he's the one that stays behind, will only have contact with the minor child maybe once every 2 years, once a year, twice a year, depending upon the facts and the circumstances, the age of the children, the financial capabilities of the parents, and so on. Therefore, I say it becomes a bit more challenging. We are going into uncharted waters. It's easier, sometimes hard, but it is much easier dealing with a scenario where the child attends school here, the father lives there, the mother lives there, this is their work schedule, this is the history, and so on. With relocation, total different ball game. You need to convince the court if the matter becomes opposed or the other party does not want to provide with the necessary consent for the relocation, that it will be in a child's best interest that the relocation happens. And the consequence of that would be that the parent staying behind will have limited contact. He or she might only see the minor child 2 years later. If COVID-19 played a role and you applied for relocation before COVID-19, and the understanding was that the one parent would see the minor child 6 months later or a year later, or the minor child would have flown back to South Africa 6 months later or a year later, and COVID-19 kicked in, limiting travel from one country to another country. It is possible that you only saw your minor child 2 years ago last, and do not know when again you can see your minor child. Of course, there are ways to go around it, going to a country, staying there for a few days, 14 days, and be quarantined and so on before you enter into the other country. But obviously, those are complicated issues. So that's a challenge regarding relocation. The case becomes harder, not impossible. We are quite successful in if you can show to the court that it will be in the minor child's best interest that the relocation takes place. But nonetheless, those are the challenges applicable, as opposed to a usual child custody matter where both parties will remain in the country. Let us deal with the first question. It goes as follows. I want to relocate to the USA with my minor child. The father does not want to consent. We are not married and lived together until the child was 5 years old. What can I do? First question I will always ask is the involvement of the father in the child's life since birth when the parties were not married. Because once I know that, I can determine whether or not the father would have acquired parental rights and responsibilities over the minor child, co-custody, co-guardianship rights, and so on. In that scenario, the father was involved in the child's life for the last 5 years, they lived together and so on. I'm certainly paid maintenance, he was actively involved in the child's life. He is a co-holder of parental rights and responsibilities, although he was unmarried, he's not married to the mother. Under those circumstances, the father's consent would be required for the minor child to apply for a passport, or the parents apply, and for the minor child to leave the country, the relocation. If the father does not want to consent, the mother would have to approach the High Court, and the court will have to determine what is in the minor child's best interest. I hope that deals with that specific question. The second scenario, or the second question, I do not know where the biological father is. Is it possible to relocate to the UK with a minor child? A bit more challenging, or could be a bit easier. We do not know where the father is. The father was most probably not involved in the minor child's life, which father might be in the USA, in the UK, in South Africa, we do not know. The difficulty you will face is, how does the court know that you do not know where the father is? You can maybe just say you do not know where the father is, and therefore you would like to relocate and get the court to sign on behalf of the father, because border control or the Home Affairs, whatever the case may be, might ask you where's the father. So you need to convince the court that you made every form of effort to inform the father. You might want to make an application to court. I will not be too technical here, whereby you can get consent to notify the father via possibly email, newspapers, Facebook, some other form to convince the court that, you try to basically get hold of this father cannot be contacted or found. Because if you truly cannot get hold of the father under these circumstances, does it mean that your whole life must be on hold? You are limited to remain in South Africa. So therefore, the first step you have to overcome is to notify the father. If you cannot notify the father, maybe via the newspapers, the government gazette, whatever the case may be, if the court is convinced that you tried everything to get hold of the father, but you cannot get hold of the father, and it is in the minor child's best interest for you to relocate, the court will grant such an order. The last question is as follows. If I relocate to Canada, what happens when I require the father's consent for something, for example, a medical procedure or enrollment into a school? Very important point, very important question to pose. My quick answer would be that when you leave the country or when you take the matter to court, you should ask the court for an order stipulating that you have sole guardianship rights over the minor child. That order will specifically stipulate that you do not require the father's consent for the relocation or to leave the Republic and to return to the Republic. It must all be stated. And the enrollment into a school, medical procedure, etc., you are the sole guardian holder of the minor child. That is very important to stipulate in the court order. I see no questions, and I think I dealt with that specific questions on the whiteboard. Thank you very much for watching this webinar, and I hope to see you online again soon. Have a lovely day.